Hey, what's up, everybody? Are you snowed in? Are you iced in? Are you watered in? There's a lot of you waiting in the background for this, I notice. And some of you talking about bad weather. How's it looking over there? John, what'd you get last night? Anything?
20. We have a broken water line that's 4 feet in the ground exposed. I've got an excavator filling the hole in right now. We've patched it. We moved water. I moved 30 gallons by hand on four-wheelers and filled rubber water bowls. We've been adding hay and mulch in places for the rabbits. Everybody's kind of put to bed right now. Everybody's fed. We'll move water again in about 5 hours. We've got troughs up top as long as we keep electricity, which doesn't seem to be a problem. But the main thing was we haven't had any water on the property for the last 24 hours.
How did that happen? 4 feet underground.
30-year-old piping. We have a 2-inch main coming in. It's PVC. And they brought me a bill 2 days ago and said, here's a $1,400 water bill for November. Go ahead and pay that right now. You have like 90 minutes before disconnect. So Amanda runs up, pays it, and we're like, we're not using any water. What does $1,400 of water look like? Well, it looks like a swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't have a swimming pool. So the water dudes, the guys, they're super cool. They come out and they're like, okay, where's your cutoffs? So we can terminate water going up to the animals on the hill. We can terminate water in the building. We can terminate water to the tiny houses. So process of elimination, everything's shut off, meter's still moving. So we start walking the property where we think the water lines are. And sure as shit, they find water coming right out of the ground. They're like, it's right here. So we get a mini excavator out here about an hour later, start trenching out, and I catch the water line and pop it. I'm like, shit, okay, now we have a leak someplace plus the one I just busted. So at 8 o'clock last night, Nick's down in this hole. Literally, when you walk out, you think he's left. He's in the ground. You can't see him. And he's digging with a shovel. We're cleaning the pipe off. And what happened was it's 2 pipes, and where the joint was, I just popped it out. And we think that's where the leak was. So fixed it, 8 o'clock. We're back inside, still no water, haven't pressurized. This morning we go out, turn water on, everything's running, no leak. It happened to be that joint, luckily.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And that's a really good, before I introduce other Nick, I will say one of the things when people ask me if I, what should I learn how to do before I move to the country? If I can't move to the country yet, I say plumbing and electrical.
Plumbing, that's what I hate the worst. That is the one thing. I don't care what the price is. You want to rob me? I will pay you. Especially if I don't have to plumb in the cold in the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always like, it's getting dark. You had to dig a hole because the stupid pipe's broken underground. Your hands won't move because they're freezing cold and they're all wet. Yeah. Be ready for that if you move to the country.
I am super lucky that I have dudes around me that are way tougher than I want to be.
Okay, so we have a new face on your channel today. This is Nick Ferguson from Homegrown Liberty, and you two have met in person. Nick has a great understanding of permaculture, and he does permaculture consults for people. He's done one for me. I think he's done one for you, John. And if you have Nick out to assess your property when you're like, I just don't know what I want to do, or even if you do know what you want to do, he's really good at saying, Nicole, if you put the duck coop there, it's going to be a big problem for you. And 5 years from now, you're going to move that duck coop. So maybe you should just put this duck coop over here, and here's why. And he does this by like talking through the big picture. So Nick, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Nick, you've been to the SOE compound. What'd you think of it?
Oh, it was really cool. It was really, I've been following John and his stuff for several years now. I think I learned about you through Jack Spirko's podcast,
probably,
and and a couple shout outs where you were saying hey over your YouTube videos. But it was really cool to see kind of the behind the scenes operations and what all you had going on. Man, you've got a lot of stuff going on there. I really like to see that kind of development.
You should have seen it today. You should have seen it today, man. Plus, I had Neethi in here today.
Oh boy,
that's a tornado in itself.
Yeah. Did you video with her today or just?
I walked in the door, I had to put grommets. I got 5 people missing today, so I'm trying to pull their stuff.
Yeah.
And no, I didn't get any video with Neethi. I had to eat real fast, and then I was right here. So for you guys that don't know, Nick is actually super famous. He's just not in front of your genre. Like, I am always super excited anytime I see. I'm like, holy shit, Nick Ferguson commented on my stuff. That's like a rock star, right? So Nick's like, hey, I'm coming to Tennessee. Do you want to go ride me around in these razors? I'm like, hell yes, I do. And that was super cool. So I got him here trapped. He didn't really have a choice. We just brought him here. So
that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
It's very neat. It's very neat to see you do your thing.
Yep. That was a pretty cool property you looked at over there too, Nick.
Man.
Go ahead.
That was a really nice property. I was really hoping that would work out, but maybe we'll find something that'll not have as much Department of Making You Sad problems.
Yeah, that's the kind of property you can put an airport, not a runway, an airport on.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. I actually waited. I knew I needed to get Nick out here, and I knew Nick was going to tell me not to do some of the things I was going to do. So I waited until after we did them. So we had to work around those things.
That's okay. Nick can work around boundaries too. He's good at that stuff. He's flexible. Okay, so part of why I thought it'd be interesting to have Nick on today is that I was talking to Nick, I think it was last week, about growing food on my property for my livestock. And the first part of that is why. So, like, Nick and John, what are you seeing in the world that might make us want to produce more of our own feed from our properties? Let's talk about the state of the world right now.
Whew. John, do you want to start with that? Or
so we have a lot of animals. In the last 2 years, people were buying toilet paper. We brought in fencing. We brought in animals. We brought in infrastructure, water holding. We have I don't think Nick's seen it. I've got a 3 million gallon pond out here now. It's 65 feet deep. All the water catchment from everything on the building goes around and dumps in that hole right there. So now we can sustain. I can move water with buckets. We can chip ice if we have to. Water is one thing we couldn't control. Now we can control it. We still don't have a well. Well's coming. So with those animals, you have to feed those animals. We use pelletized feed. Pelletized feed is an expensive cost on the property here, probably the most so. You can only store so much of it before it, starts to mildew, rot, go bad, or the animals won't eat it, or it's not good for them. So how do we get around that? And as a child, I wasn't allowed to have rabbits, right? So I went and got 2 rabbits and kept them in my closet. My mom didn't know that. So I would reach out to the tree and I would cut clippings off the tree. My 2 rabbits for 6 months never had any pelletized feed. So we know they will eat plants and survive. And that's the whole fodder thing. If you don't know what that means, we're going to put plants in the property that do multiple things. With the big thing is they are all fast growing. We can cut them and we can use them to feed the livestock should pelletized feed become a problem. We also put our rabbits in tractors. So every day we drag them. And every time I drag them, I put down new seed. I seed clover, I seed fescue, I seed wheat. So that stuff grows up. And then eventually 6 months later, they're back in that same place. And it's cut just by putting them on grass, my grow outs, it's cut my feed by 50%.
Oh, yeah. And the really cool thing is once you get going with this fodder kind of system, for those of you who've never heard of this, maybe, essentially you're going to be growing kind of like a row crop of trees, but they're going to be cut close to the ground. And every year you cut them down to the ground and they grow up and they send all these shoots up. And each one of these shoots produces a whole bunch of leaves and it's really tender and you can harvest that and feed it to your livestock. Well, you've got this laneway in between. So you got a row and then another row and then space in between. And if you space that right, you can run your chicken tractor or your rabbit tractor for your grow out bunnies. I don't like tractoring my breeders because you normally end up with parasite load problems. But for the grow outs, they're going to be out there for 2 months. 2 months, and then it's down to the freezer for them. So you put those in those tractors in between the rows. The rabbit manure and urine goes to fertilizing your trees. The trees feed your grow outs and your breeders. And for those of you who don't know, you can pretty much go 100% feed for rabbits, breeders, and bunnies that are growing out. With about 30 to 60% white mulberry. You add in a little bit of sweet potato leaf, which is really easy to grow. really great. I mean, it's edible by us. And some willow, white mulberry, willow, and sweet potato leaf can make a pretty dang near 100% feed for rabbits.
And why wouldn't I just want to buy the pellets at the store, Nick?
Well, a lot of those
Ask
pellets.
me if I can get any right now.
What if you can't?
Right. Getting the feed.
Right now, I can't get them.
I have some if you need it.
Yeah, I'm good right now. I mean, I'm sure
getting the feed can be a problem. If you want to feed soy-free, getting soy-free anything is really tough. If you want to just, I mean, geez, I don't know what your feed bill is, but you start adding that up, and that rabbit meat with your just buying the pellets is probably about $1 a pound. And that was from a couple years ago feed prices. Now I don't buy rabbit pellets, so I don't know what the feed prices are now, but I'm sure it's about to get a whole lot more expensive. The last numbers I saw, fertilizer prices have increased 100% for this year alone.
That's what they say.
I just heard wood is about expected to triple in the next 90 days again. So I mean, it's all going to go hand in hand. When you see all the trucker stuff at the borders and all the vac stuff going on, like it's just going to amplify, and it's just a reason to amplify.
Yeah, and the workaround for that, for the increase in feed costs, or right now there are sporadic shortages that may become more endemic as the year goes on, is you don't need that feed. Yeah. That's, and it's not an on-off switch, right? Yeah. So if you have livestock and you have some land, you can start, and maybe you've replaced 20% of your feed the first year, and then 30% of your feed the second year. I have an interesting comment here from Jason. He said, I tried to grow fodder like Jack did, but my animals wouldn't eat it. I
had that too.
What'd you do about it?
I thought, well, we'll do them like a child, right? You're just not hungry enough. They didn't eat it. We started with barley like Jack was doing.
Yeah.
They did eat the black tar sunflower seed. Some would eat it, some wouldn't eat it. There was really no rhyme or reason to it, though.
Any thoughts on that one, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, the sprouted grains and the sprouted seeds work fine. Some animals just don't really like it. Sometimes there will be treatments that the companies will spray on the seed to inhibit germination. Sometimes there will be kind of trace amounts of mold on there that even after it sprouts, it still stinks to the animals. They have a lot more sensitive noses than we do, and they can smell stuff that they know is going to be harmful for them, so they'll just not eat it. The leaves, growing these tree leaves is just so much simpler, so much more robust. John, Nicole, anyone listening, I always like to, I'm not a doom and gloomer, but I always, every single time, every design is predicated upon this possibility that the stink is going to hit the fan and everything is going to go sideways. And if everything goes sideways and my design is built around trucking working every single day, then my design is not robust. And my design has a built-in breaking point. And I don't like designs that do that. I want to be able to make sure that as long as I am capable of doing some work, I can feed my family, I can feed my animals. And as long as the sun shines, rain falls, or I can bucket some water to some trees, that I can make sure I'm still feeding my animals, which are in turn feeding my family. Now that's number one. So if my design requires going to a feed store, then I'm completely 100% beholden to that feed store. And I don't like that. I'm a very independent minded person. I like to be responsible for myself and my problems. And, that really just kind of boils down to, all right, what must I do to be able to make sure I can always check that box? My animals are fed today. And growing my own is the easiest way to do that.
Yeah, I can say the pickiest animals I've had on feed changes are turkeys.
Mm.
They will not figure it out. And what I had to do with the turkeys was mix old feed with what I was
Yep.
trying to get them to eat, and then they'd figure out it tasted good. And then once they figured out it was good, it was game on. So I don't know if that helps with people who are having trouble training their animals to accept the fodder they make. But anytime you change feed, like it can happen with dogs, although it won't happen with mine because they're like, ooh, exciting new flavor. But it will happen, and just sort of easing them into that can really help. I know somebody who taught their animals to eat field thistle by mixing thistle in with grain.
Yeah.
And then they would go out and target the thistle in the field, and then she didn't have to deal with thistle.
Yeah.
Maybe starting the new generation off with the fodder also. You know, when you're going to put baby rabbits, especially when you're going to put them out on the ground, you need to start introducing them to grass right away, because if they eat too much, you know, they can get sick and have problems with it. So you kind of, before we drop them to the ground, maybe that's where we start fodder at on the new ones, just from the very beginning, so they don't know any different.
Yeah. So like with my rabbits, I'll cut and carry fodder leaves pretty much every single day to my breeders. And then when that doe has kits and they open up their eyes, they start coming out of the nest box. The first thing they find is fresh fodder leaves, and they're ready to go. As soon as they are leaving the nest, they're ready to eat. And so the first things they're getting are hay and fresh fodder and dried fodder leaves. And so from day one, that's what they're eating, and their GI tract is already primed for that because the doe is eating the fodder leaves. So they're already ready to go. And honestly, I've never had any problem with that. The only times I've ever had any problem getting an animal to eat a new thing was with my livestock guardian dogs. When I started feeding them rabbits, they're like, Dad,
we're supposed to protect these,
or food god, because that's the mentality I like for my dog to have. I'm not their dad. I'm not a dog dad. I don't buy into that. I am the food god, and the food god says you do this, and then you do it, or else you don't get food. So when the food god would bring a rabbit, they're like, we're not supposed to eat those, right? And so I actually had to cook the rabbit ever so slightly and put a little bit of seasoning on it, and then I brought that slightly just seared and seasoned corpse to them. And they're like, oh, this is great food. And then the next time it was just a little bit of seasoning on it and raw meat, and then the next time was just raw meat, and to the point where I could just do a little cervical dislocation, rabbit's dead, toss it over the fence, and they jump up and catch the whole rabbit. They'd take it off, and they'd sit there contentedly munching on raw rabbit for a couple days. And that one rabbit would last one big livestock guardian dog 2-3 days. And so, I mean, 2 rabbits a week, and they were happy and healthy, shiny coats.
Yep.
But it's kind of incrementalism. If you're feeding grain and you want to add some shredded white mulberry leaves or hybrid poplar or willow, then run it through a leaf shredder and mix it up with the normal feed, and then just slowly transition them to a greater and greater percentage, and that should very easily transition both their gut microflora, fauna, and psychologically help them ease into that new way of eating.
Nick, you answered a question I was going to ask you. That was how many rabbits do my dogs need to eat?
Yeah. It depends on calorie expenditure, how big the dog is.
Mm-hmm.
My livestock guardian dogs, I like them a little bit smaller because I like them a little bit more nimble. I don't like big hulking, slow predators that are supposed to be killing any trespasser on my property indiscriminately. I want them quick, I want them agile, and I want them to hit hard and end the threat. That's what I want out of my livestock guardian dogs. So mine are normally around mid 80s So about 85 to 89 pounds a piece. And man, they're happy with a chicken leg quarter and a rabbit per week. Or, right now I don't have any rabbits. I sent them all off. So we're feeding chicken leg quarters and dog kibble. And so they'll get 1 or 2 chicken leg quarters a week and maybe a couple cups of regular dog food. It's just in a hopper feeder. They can have it whenever they want. And I've got 3 dogs out there right now, and they're all about the same size. And they'll go through a 50-pound sack of dog food in a month. And I don't know if anyone ever compares the dog food price. This is sad. The 10-pound sacks of chicken leg quarters at any of your big box stores are normally cheaper than the cheapest dog food. If that says anything about the quality of your food, the cheap, like Old Roy dog food is like 50, 52, 53 cents a pound. And you can buy those chicken leg quarters for less than 50 cents a pound. That's crazy.
Yeah, our bag of dog food is $75 a bag.
Yeah.
And that's a 50-pound bag. Do you have any food aggression between the dogs? Like, you have any dominance issues where one wants to take the food from the other one, even though it has its own?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We normally let them just tough that out. We will always give the alpha of the group their food first, and they'll take it off and they'll leave and they'll go eat privately. And then we give the next, they have a hierarchy, they have a pecking order. And then, sometimes if they get a little bit too aggressive, I will intervene and I'll alpha roll them and I'll say, no, this is not how we're going to act. And I'll take that food out of their mouth and I'll give it to the other one. And then they'll kind of settle down a little bit. And then once they're calm, then I'll give that one that's kind of bucking the pack hierarchy.
Yeah, we had to pull our male out. We have a new male. He's about 13 months. He's 150 pounds right now. And he has 2 mouths, right? I wanted something with more mouth behind it, but he plays too hard. So we get a female, gets cut, has 7 stitches, and then she pulls her stitches out. So 3 sets of stitches. She takes a cone off. I mean, we finally had to crate her. It was quite the fiasco for about 4 or 5 weeks. Yep. So we have him separated now, and he's learned that he can now get under the fence. So we have this chain link fence that's 6 feet tall. In the last 2 days, they've put probably 40 rail ties across the inside, and we've hammered those with staples in. But he can jump over the fence. He just doesn't know he can yet. And hopefully he doesn't find that out.
What are you going to do if he finds it out?
We're going to have to collar him. I mean, I have a shock collar. We'll probably use a perimeter, zap fence or something, hot wire on the top at some point. The fence, Nick, since you've been here, the whole and back of the property is 100% fenced now. There's a 5-foot fence. It's got all small gauge, and like a rabbit can't even run through the wire. It's all 100% in place, and the poles are set so we can hot wire that stuff like we had discussed.
Yeah. That's my favorite thing to do with any kind of dogs, and it works equally well for goats, sheep, pretty much anything, is hot wire at the bottom, hot wire at the shoulder height of whatever your average height is for your livestock or dogs, and then one at the very top, or at, like, if they're going to stand up and put their front paws or hooves up there where they'll come in contact with that, and put a good charger on there. John, for your size property, probably like at least an 8-joule charger. And what I like to do with dogs for canines is I'll put peanut butter or bacon grease on a little flag of aluminum foil. You unplug your charger, go out there with your aluminum foil, fold it over, and you make a little like 2-inch wide strip, and you fold it over your wire. You only want it, a little bit, just a couple inches long, and you smear a little bit of peanut butter on there, and then go down. And the next one has a little bit of bacon grease smeared on it, just enough for a yummy smell. And they want to go up there and lick it, and you do that all along your fence. And I mean, goats will go nuts over the peanut butter. So will sheep, deer, and you turn your charger back on, and they very quickly learn, you know what? That fence bites, and that fence bites harder than I bite back. So I'm just not going to mess with it. And they'll learn really quick to just leave it alone.
That fence works for people too.
Yes.
We electrified my fence here for the goats, and we had a next door neighbor rental problem where drugs were involved, and they got into where they were breaking into stuff and stealing stuff. And somebody from over there, I figured it out because my gate was open and left open. Somebody came over and that wire just went across it, right? Because you have to unhook the wire. And I'm pretty sure they just got the crap zapped out of them because it was a goat fence. And they didn't come steal a thing.
Your fence got me, and I knew the fence was there, and it got me. It got me twice on 2 different days.
Yeah, I have a dog who doesn't like to go outside alone anymore because she keeps getting bitten by the pig fence. So I need to train her. Like, I need to figure out how to make it visual for her when we just have wire up. But so you may start seeing flags at my house.
Yeah. Years ago, I had left and I had a problem. We collectively left and there was nobody on the property. And I had a problem with somebody coming from off the property and messing with my barn. And I have a regular type of door. And so I noticed the door was getting left open. And the dogs and the goats cannot turn that doorknob. Right. I know as a human. So I took from the inside of the barn, I took a hot wire and I looped it on the doorknob. And then I just jumped the fence to leave. And we never had a problem with that again. You reach up there and you grab that doorknob and then 8 joules goes through your hand, across your chest or down your leg, 5 feet away to the ground rod. That'll light you up and make your vision dim.
Yeah. Homestead Glamour says, you've got quite a fence, John. I'm just glad the dogs weren't out when I got locked in.
You'd have been
if you do not leave when you say you're leaving and he closes that gate, you're not leaving.
You would have been okay with the dogs. The dogs would have been okay.
Yeah. They knew you were in. You weren't out trying to climb over.
Dogs know. Like when you're there and you're doing some shit that you shouldn't be doing, the dogs know. And when you can be there, the dogs know that too.
Yeah. Okay, let's get back to fodder trees a little bit. What varieties of trees in Tennessee make for good fodder for our livestock? And does it matter if they're goats or cows or pigs or chickens? Like, how does that all work, Nick?
Sure. So there are some species that are better for some species of trees that are better for some species of animals. There are some that are pretty much universally safe. The 3 that I have as my top fodder picks are hybrid willow. Most willow is just fine. Cottonwood, it's a hybrid poplar. Again, most cottonwoods and poplar species are just fine. And white mulberry. Now, white mulberry has more protein than the other trees. It grows slower. I picked hybrids because they grow faster and I want lots of growth, lots of protein. I want as much production out of every square foot that I can get. So that's why those 3 are my top picks. But what I always tell everyone is, listen, I am not trying to convince everyone to buy trees from me. Every time I tell people, listen, there are willows in your region, there are mulberry in your region, and there are cottonwood, poplar of some kind in your region. You can use those. People have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. There's tons of stuff that you can use growing right in your backyard. You can get started with that if you just identify the trees. So for people that are on a shoestring budget, don't bother buying trees from me. Start with what you got in your backyard, identify the trees, and go from there. If you really want, to get as much production as you can and the best bang for your buck as you can, get some good hybrids that'll grow really fast. But like for Tennessee area, there's a type of tree that is growing all over the state. It's called Polonia tomentosa. It's the Royal Empress tree. It makes gigantic leaves. Those are great. Any of the mulberries, white or red or hybrids, are great. Like I said, the white has higher protein. Most of the willows, weeping willow, white willow, black willow, hybrids, those are all great. I like the hybrid poplar because it grows faster. The hybrid willow because it grows faster. And then of course the poplars are a favorite of mine. Most of the elms, ash. Most of the time oak is safe, but oak normally has higher tannins, which can irritate the gut and cause absorption issues with nutrients. So normally the lower the tannins, the more protein the animals will be able to extract out of that leaf matter. And the more protein they get out of it, the more they can synthesize and build muscle. And that's the stuff we eat. So generally you want those lower tannin leaves. I do want to say you should be careful about anything that comes from a stone fruit. A lot of those stone fruit tree species will produce, I always forget, I think it's cyanide. Pretty sure it's cyanide because that smells like almonds.
Yeah.
Right? Cyanide?
Yes.
And they'll have that in their leaves, and when the leaves wilt, that there's some chemical process that happens, and there are some metabolites or something of cyanide or something in those leaves that can produce toxicity issues. So I tell people stay away from those. A little bit that's not wilted is normally safe. Most of these herbivores, goats, sheep, and rabbits, they browse. They have a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there, and they'll eat lots of different toxic things. But because they're having a really, really broad selection, nothing really happens. Nothing negative really happens. So, if you're getting a really diverse mix, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you're feeding nothing but cherry leaves, you might have some problems there.
Yeah, so we could mix some peach leaves in for the goats because they just love the crap out of peach leaves, but you don't want all peach leaves.
Right.
But Acer Negundo, which is the box elder that grows all over, that one's fine. Yeah, and if you're in Tennessee, the box elder, it grows like a weed everywhere. And when Nick told me that was fine, I was like, I can go pollard all of them on my property because they grow like weeds, and I already have the vegetative matter there, which means then when I'm adding other fodder trees, it's a complement to that.
Right. And that's the way, again, we're getting into kind of min-maxing. Are the box elder great? No, they're not great. Will they do? Sure. You already have it there. And, I don't have unlimited dollars to allocate to my project. So let's start with what we have. Let's start with the box elder. Look around, find some willow. Right now,
we have willow all over the place. John, do you have willow on your proproperty?
I don't know what we have on my property.
We're going to look this spring.
Nick came out and told me I had a bunch of trees that I didn't. I just said they were oak trees or something. I know we have some oaks. We've got some, there's pecan, I think, trees here. There's some pecan trees. What are the hickory? We have hickory nut trees, hickory trees.
Yep.
But
yeah, I would stick with the tried and true ones that are, like I said, those three that I have in my fodder pack that I'm pretty much sold out of, are the safest across the board. Horses, sheep, goats, cattle, rabbits, pretty much anything that'll eat leaves will eat those and have no problems with them. there are so many different problematic tree species for different livestock animals. I hesitate to branch out too much because I can't fit it all in my head. But it's really easy to Google search, if you're feeding horses, for instance, there's a whole lot more things that are
Everything kills
problems
horses.
for horses, right? So
I think that's a good safety rule. If you can feed it to a horse and it doesn't die, you can probably feed it to everything else.
right. And one of the interesting things I wanted to bring up about the fodder trees, especially the white mulberry, which is why it's pretty much my favorite. Ideally, I'd have several acres of white mulberry fodder production just so I could feed as much as I wanted to. The young leaves and shoots are tasty. They are good edible greens for humans. You can add them raw to your salads, or you can cook them, add them to cooked mixed greens. So when it comes to, if you're really planning for, man, we're going to have some contingency plans for the complete, utter breakdown, everything's gone sideways. You've got an acre of white mulberry planted and the roving hordes are coming through looting and pillaging.
They're going to leave that alone. They don't know what to do with it. They
Who's
don't
going
know
to
what
look
to do with
twice at that?
watercress or anything else that just grows.
No, it's just bushes.
So every time I say mulberry, people are like, "Oh, John, you don't want mulberry trees. The birds will poop all over everything." We're going to cut them kind of like to the ground almost, right? We're never really going to get mulberries off of them.
Nope. They're never going to produce mulberries. They're going to be cut every single year. They're not going to be producing any berries, so your Portia is safe.
Unless you let it grow into a tree and get berries, and then you will get purple poop all over your porch.
Yes.
Even white mulberry has purple berries?
Yes.
Yes. So contrary to common belief, white mulberries have purple berries. There are some white mulberry that have colorless berries, white berries. But if we're talking about just common white mulberry, it's going to have purple berries, just like red mulberry.
John needs white is what he needs.
How about no, everything I have is black.
Oh. Except for you don't want black poop on your porch.
How about bamboo?
Bamboo for fodder?
Uh-huh.
It's okay. It has a ton of fiber and not very much digestible protein. Okay. So it's not optimal. I mean, if you had on your property, I probably wouldn't bother with it because space is going to be at a premium. You're going to have to really get inventive about space allocation and kind of function stacking to get everything you want to squeeze out of that acreage. So I'd probably stay away from bamboo unless there was just, a corner where you really want bamboo.
So what I want is in fall, when the leaves fall, I don't want to see the gas station over there. So I always thought, let's just get in there and just pop in bamboo and it'll grow so dense that we won't ever see the gas station over there.
Yep. So
we'll do that.
Yep. That's one good use for that is, for a visual blockage. And there are bamboo species that'll do just fine in your winters and will even hold leaves through the whole winter and should grow thick enough to provide a good visual blockage. So, awesome. Yeah.
I probably can get you free cuttings from some.
Perfect.
That used to be on the property. I'll talk to the person I sold it to and see.
I was going to go to the Nashville Zoo and just grab some of theirs. They have some really nice ones.
Yeah.
They don't know what you're doing when you borrow stuff like that.
I had a flamingo, but they made me put it down. I had a little flamingo. I'm probably not going to get to go to the zoo much anymore.
So let's talk about John's compound. John, how many acres do you have if that's publicly available? 10 acres. And some of it is factory and some of it is livestock area and some of it's kind of foresty.
So that front hill right when you come on that property, that was part of the motocross track. So that was a full speed downhill. And we haven't been running razors through here and stuff. And it's sun. It's almost always, it catches a lot of good sun. We've got 72 blueberries across there, so we know we get some sunlight. And it's got good wind break from those trees up on the edge of the property. And I've thought for the last couple of years, we should fully plant that thing. Just leave a couple trails down between there that you could almost, walk or ride a 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
But it gives us a couple of solid acres right there, probably an acre and a half, all said, where we can put anything there. And I'm not we can put. You've seen the property. It's changed a little bit, and we have a lot of places where we can plant.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you approach his property with fodder trees, Nick, knowing that he has a variety of livestock, a busy life, but is also capable of maintaining things?
Well, all of there is no, so we got rid of the goats. So that inside that front fenced area, I want to put a fruit tree every other post, 10 feet off the post. That's what I wanted to start with. So there's no goats here. There's currently no sheep here. We will eventually bring goats and sheep back, but in the back area. And I mean, we can lock them off and, fence around stuff if we have to.
Right. So the nice thing about these fodder trees is if you have a tractor with a bush hog,
we do.
Every winter, you basically want to just cut everything to the ground. So you can either go through there with hand pruners and snip every single one of the suckers, or a little hand saw or a power saw or whatever, or you can just run a tractor with a bush hog right over top of it, keep those stumps trimmed at about 4 inches off the ground, 6 inches, whatever, and you just chop it and drop it as mulch and just leave it. And then it'll shoot right back up, make new shoots, and then you can manage that throughout the summer with something simple like this.
Yep.
Battery powered.
Yep.
Choose the brand of your choice. And you just run through there and just cut the tops off, and everything drops on the ground. You just rake it up, and then you can go feed it to your animals. If you have more production than you can use fresh, and you just need to keep trimming to keep everything, to keep using what you're growing, then what you can do is you can take a whole bunch of that, run it through a leaf shredder right into one of those heavy duty contractor bags, throw a little bit of powdered or spray a little bit of, diluted molasses in there. If you're needing to supplement with salt, sprinkle a little bit of salt in there and close it up. Use a shop vac to vacuum it down tight, and then you tie it off real good. You twist that bag and then you fold it over and then duct tape it so you keep it airtight sealed. And that's going to turn into silage, and it's going to ferment. Yeah,
tell us what silage is for people who don't know, because not everybody's seen Wartime Farm.
Right. Okay. So
you should watch that.
You should totally go watch that. Right. And every other series they've done.
So silage is basically just leaves or stalk material. It's plant matter that is fermented. Think old-fashioned pickles. They were plant matter that was fermented. It's just a brine solution, and lactobacillus eats up the sugars and turns it into acetic acid, and you get kind of a vinegary fermented product, and it's stable. The pH drops way low, so bad bacteria and other things that will start breaking down the matter just can't grow in that very acidic environment. And basically you pickle the leaves, so you'll end up with it actually kind of pre-digests. It'll break down a lot of the proteins into easier to digest components, and then you'll end up with let me look at my numbers here. For the white mulberry, normally you'll have like a 15 to 24% protein. Well, that protein content might bump up by 25%. So you might be looking at 20 to 35%, 20 to 32% protein. That's amazing. 20% protein is fantastic.
Would my pigs eat it?
Abso-freaking-lutely. Your pigs would go nuts over that stuff. And the reason why the silage is such a great thing. Is it's broken down a bit, and it looks more like regular human food, table scraps. And chickens will pick at the green leaves and eat some of the green leaves, but they're not really that interested in it. You go out there with a bucket full of table scraps.
We feed everything. We feed 20 people here a day. Everything goes to the chickens first.
Yep. Same, except I don't feed 20 people. They go ham on it. They love it. So you throw a couple handfuls of that higher protein fermented leaves that you grew for free in there with that stuff, and all of a sudden, the 30 chickens that you were keeping on your table scraps, all of a sudden now you can keep 40 chickens.
Yeah.
Or 50 chickens with the same amount of feed inputs, because you're supplementing with a good 30, possibly 30% protein leaf matter that's fermented. It's healthy for them. It's got lots of good minerals in there. And I mean, there's lots of studies out there. I've got a link on my website where you can go to Feedopedia and click on the nutrition for one of these fodder tree species, and there's like pages and pages of studies linked on there. Tons and tons of research has gone into this. People do this all over the world. In third world countries, that's how they exist, is they feed things like white mulberry to their livestock.
So then on John's property, you're talking about putting the holy trinity of fodder trees, if you will,
mm-hmm.
and then coppicing, right?
Yep, you coppice. That means,
what does coppice mean for people who have no idea what that is?
So there's two kind of management styles historically. One is cutting it basically to the ground and stumping it 4 inches or so off the ground, and that's coppicing, and it sends up shoots from the stump every spring. And then the kind of silvopasture version of that is pollarding, and traditionally they would just, you cut it up above the animal's grazing height. So if you have Nigerian dwarf dairy goats, then that grazing height might be 3 feet off the ground, right? Because they'll stand up on there and reach up. So they're only going to reach up 3 feet. But I mean, if you have full-size dairy goats or full-size sheep, that might be 6 feet. And so you just cut that off up there, and you let a couple leaders grow out from that tree, and then they're going to send off shoots from those branches, and you'll just prune them back every year and kind of top them. And pollarding takes a whole lot more effort and a lot more. If you had a tractor with a boom arm where you could just set that mower deck at 6 feet or whatever, you could just mow right over top of them mechanically. I normally tend to encourage people to set up their system so that they can coppice, because a lot of these smaller homesteads, either they have a tractor or their neighbor or a neighbor right in their network, in their neighborhood, has a tractor with a bush hog. And then, for a case of beer and an afternoon of work, their neighbor will bring over the tractor and just mow over everything and take care of it for him. And it's real quick and easy. So that's kind of what I would lean more towards. It really just all depends on the way that you kind of your manpower, and I think it would
so John would be looking at coppicing somewhere.
Yeah, especially for that kind of that barrier in between the road and the rest of the compound. If you have a whole bunch of those trees that are growing up from a stump, it's going to look really brushy, and it's going to look like, hey, someone timbered throughout here and everything's just growing up, and it's going to look all kind of overgrown. And I really like that gray man. This is not the compound you're looking for.
Shit, we have bat signals. Like they know where we're at.
He's going to be running like the lights. Okay, we got a question here from Dean. Is it true every farm animal can live on only straw and hay during the winter?
No, that's not true. Straw is pretty much devoid of all nutrition. Um, Most animals cannot live on exclusively hay. The cattle and sheep can live on hay and grass almost exclusively. The higher production breeds, like dairy animals, will require more concentrated feedstuffs, will require more protein, and most hay is going to be in single digits on protein. Um, so definitely not straw, but some of those animals, yes, you can feed them exclusively hay. They will lose body condition. I mean, you need protein to build muscle. So if you want to maintain muscle, you have to eat enough protein. And that rule applies to livestock just as it does for humans.
And if we want to eat meat, meat is made out of what?
Protein.
Yep. Okay, so we're coming on close to an hour here. John, do you have anything else you want to ask Nick?
When are we putting these in? When are you coming here and putting these in?
Hey, if people want to talk to Nick more, when are you coming to Camden next, Nick?
I'm coming up there. What is the date?
Around February
19th.
February 19th, around about there.
Maybe then.
Yeah,
maybe then.
Is it for this little ditty right here, the Self-Reliance Festival?
Yeah.
John's putting on a 2-day event, and
Nicole is.
John and I are putting on a 2-day event on the 19th and 20th, and Nick is going to make it unless a weather event keeps him from driving up. But if you have lots of questions about livestock, about permaculture design, about raising rabbits, making proper cages, training your animals to fencing, training your animals to electric fencing, training your dogs, training your kids for that matter. Nick knows a lot of things. Like, he's an impressive parent. His kids are a joy to talk to. And that means that the parenting, he's training them to be adults from the moment they're born. And so anyway, there are lots of things you can talk to Nick about at the Self-Reliance Festival.
That's when people are like, hey, can I bring my kids? If you have to ask, then the answer, no, you cannot bring your kids. The answer is always, no, these are non-children event. But people show up with kids and there's never a problem, because people who have kids that know they're not a problem, they don't have to ask the question. They can go.
Yeah.
And we have some amazing kids coming here. You'll talk to these kids and you're like, you got to be 35 years old. Like, are you just stunted? What's the deal here?
The other thing is, do you have any trees you're still selling at rareplantstore.com?
I'm almost sold out. I'm slated to, if everything goes well this year. It's kind of like counting your chickens before they hatch, counting your trees before they're rooted. I should have a tremendous amount more capacity this upcoming year, because I will be growing almost everything in-house starting this year. Up until now, I've had to rely on other growers. So we will, I should be able to crank production up quite a bit in the upcoming year. But currently, I think I am sitting at maybe like 5 or 6 more tree packages for the fodder trees. I do still have probably about a dozen of the fruit and nut packages.
Yeah.
How many trees is in a package?
Depends on the package. The fodder tree package, the smallest one, has 8. And then I double that for the next size up, and I knock the price down 10%, and the next size up doubled again.
What would we like here? We'd probably need 100 trees, probably. Yeah.
Let's talk after the call and figure out what I can do.
Doing production, a row house would probably help that out quite a bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks for being on, guys. If you want to just follow Nick, it's homegrownliberty.com, and he does sell these tree packages at rareplantstore.com. And think about coming to the Self-Reliance Festival. I saw somebody ask, is it going to be online at all? The answer to that is not with intention, but it's not out of the question that we could stream from here, but it won't be every session. It's part of the purpose of the Self-Reliance Festival is not only to equip each other with the ability to do things for ourselves, but it's to equip each other with relationships, with strong, trusting relationships, because not everybody's going to raise pigs. Not everybody's going to raise fodder trees or know how to do that. Not everybody's going to be the best person at first aid. Not everybody's going to know how to source things from out of the area that we do need if it's hard to get them. But if we get to know each other, we come together and we know the guy who can do the thing. I mean, that is part of the important thing, is to get all of our various networks to know each other and to really know each other, not just, hey, I saw you online once.
It's crazy that you have to go out of state to find a person from your state that lives 15 minutes from you. And it happens all the time. And you just guys don't know, because you're so alike and in avoiding, you know, different situations and stuff, that you don't even know that the dude lives across the street from you.
It's hilarious. I'll have clients email me, and I've mistakenly thought, we just talked about this. Why are you emailing me about setting up a consult? And literally the guy lived 2 houses down from the next person that just emailed me.
You're like,
let's
have a dinner party while I'm there.
We are a whole lot more in number than we think.
And that, I think that's by design, right? That is the intention, because if you realize you don't need them, then they don't matter anymore. And for them to exist, they have to matter. And that's on purpose.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, guys, so get your tickets to Self-Reliance Festival at selfreliancefestival.com. I hope to see you in person February 19th or 20th. But if not, I'm pretty sure there'll be another one in the summer, right? Yep.
Awesome.
So we'll just
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you there, Nick. It'll be good to see you in person.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone.